How's it going, chumps? Welcome back to Chump Trader Trading. And we have the small account challenge, which we are not off to a good start. Unfortunately, still today is March 17th, 2023, and it's a Friday, and I still don't have my cash settled on here. However, if you look over here, I actually have 4 cents in interest on the 2000 for some strange reason that is not allowing me to trade with, but I'm still earning interest on it. Well, in actuality, we are closer to our goals, 4 cents closer to our goal. So I consider that progress. And in these certain kind of markets where there is a heightened, where the Fed keeps increasing the interest rate, yeah, savings accounts these days are looking pretty good as a way to park cash these days, especially bond. Is also like parking it into federal bonds as well, short term at least. So that's also kind of what has been causing a lot of the chaos as people are getting concerned with the banking stuff. But I'll get into that later. So since we don't really necessarily have anything going on with the main account, I guess what we'll do today is basically go over sort of what happened in the market this week. I'll show you what happened with that iron condor that I had set up if in the event that I would have set it up the exact same way but with a different account. And then I'll also go over sort of what trades I would have considered throughout the entire week as I start laying out different positions. So let's walk through kind of, I guess, what happened in the NASDAQ for a little bit. I'll just use QQQ as the example, and then we'll just kind of go through an entire week's worth of progression. So we started off pretty much around this date, March 13th, and then we had quite a bit of a rally day after day after day. It was sort of a rally at opening, and then it would just sort of plateau, sit there, close down, build up again in the morning, and then just keep doing it over. Literally stair-stepping its way all the way into Friday, and then where we kind of had some sort of a small sell-off for the remainder, for majority actually, of Friday. So that was kind of like in terms of the NASDAQ. The SPY is kind of a similar story as well. The NASDAQ pretty much led the entire market, and as you know that I like to be in this particular ETF in semiconductors. It's very closely tied to the NASDAQ, so it has roughly similar-ish patterns, except the rally up towards the end of the week was a lot more kind of aggressive coming off of Thursday and into Friday. So, but one thing that caught my eye for the last couple of days, as I was kind of a little bit frustrated that I couldn't trade on the actual Chump Change account, was FRC, or First Republic Bank. Now, if anybody who's been following the news, as everybody can, would imagine, is that, yeah, the bank are pretty much in trouble. And as just sort of a gut feeling as a trader, usually when people are running out, I technically tend to walk in. So I actually started making a couple of trades in different accounts in First Republic Bank, and I made several poor man's leap in 2 different accounts, and then I just kept selling off covered calls. So what ended up happening was the biggest sell-off happening roughly around here. Actually, it was definitely March 15th. Set up a poor man's leap, opened up a covered call. It dropped down the next following morning. Basically bought back that covered call, and then it went back up again from literally 22 to 30-ish. And then sold covered calls again at around 31, 32. And then the next following day, it opened up around 26. And I didn't know it was going to go down any lower, so I just decided to close it right around 24-ish. So on both days, I made approximately 50% of that profit. So it was about like $400 each covered call. And mind you, those covered calls weren't just like a single day or 0 day. it was like a 45 day. I was planning to hold that position because it was giving me $800 in premium on that covered call, but it had lost half of its value, close to half of its value in literally a day. So I just said, this is a no-brainer. Take your profits. And that's one piece of advice that I would suggest to newer traders, is that you need to learn to take your profits. Because if you get greedy, you get stuck in certain situations where you could have had a decent profit, but because you held, you're in no man's land because the position moves way away from you. So right now, as it was actually leveling off, if we look at it from a single day position right here, it was just sort of trailing off a little bit earlier in the trading day, all the way in the 24, the 26 level. And then basically when market closed, you just have this collapse right here. So clearly this was just a candidate strictly for trading. I do not recommend for newer traders to really get into high volatility items like this unless you know what you're doing. But if I were to take a quick peek at the account for that position right here, that covered call ironically has 0 on there because it basically zeroed out by the market close. So when market opens tomorrow, it'll give me a value at this particular point. Not sure why it's not showing up on that where. But yeah, the amount that I made on the long position on here is pretty much more than 50% made up from just the covered calls of 3 days of holding this position. So I can just keep milking this until I basically break even, and then anything else after that is profit. Or if there's somehow an upswing into First Republic Bank, I will basically make a decent amount on top of that. So I have money made in both directions. And these unilateral kind of money making positions is what I really like. So for example, here, as the stock is about to plummet down into this level, I have a what's called a put ratio spread onto here, where a credit put ratio spread. And as the stock floats into this teens level, if it were to basically expire worthless in this pretty much this zone right here, I'll make a pretty penny in terms of like profit for a position that costs very little in terms of buying power. And again, I'll walk through sort of like why these types of positions are really nice to provide kind of a good risk to reward ratio. And for small accounts, it's doable per se. So let's go to the original story, and that is the first position I would have made, and that is SoxX Iron Condor. So the position that was placed into here had these kind of parameters set into here. So as the stock just kept rallying day after day after day. So let's go back to that week look again. So I'll open that position pretty much around this date right here. And then it rallied up, wasn't concerned. Got a little small downtrend over here, but then monster rally on Thursday. And then finally Friday, that small teeter-totter up. I look at this as a bit of a consolidation, but where we go after this, it's anybody's game or anybody's guess, because my resistance and support levels that I draw for the short term was really only in this territory. I was not really expecting it to really go into these wild swings as there's more market volatility. I could look into it in terms of where our new support and resistance levels are. And I believe when I opened this position, I actually inspected that. So since this was a 1 month position, I looked out in terms of where we were at the time, 1 month out. Let's take a look at like a 3 month perspective. And I probably picked like the 420 level, and then gave myself some more buffer room all the way to the 450. So that's where that short position is. So I did a 445 actually. and the lower end of it was like a 399, so let's just call it 400 even. So I gave myself some more buffer room there, basically creating field goal posts that are much wider, so that there's a lot of room for basically the stock price to just swing and bounce around, but never ever exceeding up or down in this particular range. And it's interesting that I don't see it right now, but earlier today I actually saw this bell curve kind of peak over right here. So as time was going on and as market volatility was just going and there was buying and selling, I started to notice that P&L is starting to show up in this position. Obviously it's after market hours, so there's really no data feeding into this bell curve, so it's really hard to look at it hindsight. So in the future, hopefully I'll be able to record these videos during market sessions, so that way we can get as live of data sets as we possibly can. So far right now, this red line indicates where the current stock price is. And so even though the stock itself is at one point was shooting up and can still shoot up in the 430s, which is a very high range, I'm very glad that I gave myself a lot of wiggle room so that I could be able to move into what I needed to do. So without further ado, the iron condor is still into play. There's no adjustments really need to be made here unless some wild and crazy kind of situation where the market is going to basically implode or explode. I think I should be fine with this iron condor. Just too bad it's in the wrong account. So luckily, at least I'm able to show what could have happened once I did put that trade on, and be able to demonstrate what it would have been capable of. And to be fair, it's a very low maintenance kind of trade, because you really don't want to modify this kind of trade once you set an iron condor. So without further ado, I will go back to First Republic Bank, because it's just the apple of my eyes at that particular point. It was just a lot of wild and crazy movements, and man oh man, I wish I could have had captured any of this kind of market share. But at the same token, I think First Republic Bank or any of I wouldn't say SVB or Signature Bank would be something that I would personally be, owning or trading maybe, but not owning, definitely. But First Republic Bank definitely caught my eye in terms of the size of the bank, the level of equity that they were invested in, and then also what we're trapped in. And then at the same time, just sort of the size of the stock price in general. So I think whereas the other two banks, they're definitely going to have to get either some form of bailout or some form of bankruptcy in some shape or form, just to be able to sort of clear the water. I think First Republic Bank, with their talks recently of having JP Morgan, I believe, look into either giving them like some liquidity, right, in exchange for some money, or that they are potentially looking into a buyout. In either of those situations, those are pretty much what drew the market to just do these wild swings. I believe this move all the way up to 47 was news that JP Morgan was actually going to do that buyout. So that caught my attention, and then that's when I got in the following day, and then just decided to trade it after that and just sort of milk this kind of wild ride on the way down, while giving me some coverage in case it does spike, up north, that none of the calls that I would be selling would basically go in the money, and then I'd be forced to basically buy 100 shares of it and then sell it. So that was sort of the buying power that was allotted to me by purchasing this long position right here. And I can explain the poor man's leap in a different video, but that's just sort of a snapshot here. enjoy your weekend, everybody. And yeah, next week hopefully I can finally start doing some trading, and then we can finally get the rubber to the road. Take care, and see you in the next one.